Hi guys, Mr. Chapman here. This is the third video in the series of videos on database skills. The previous video we were working inside the students database and we just constructed the TBL students table. I have two things open on my screen at the moment, which I'll just touch base on quickly. I have my Word document data dictionary, which is the overview of all of the fields and the data types. And I've just highlighted these cells in the middle to show you that there is a mix of data types that we'll actually be creating. And if I switch across, in fact, I'll minimize that so we can focus in on Microsoft Access. Picking up from where we were last video, we have the TBL students table created, and we're currently looking at the design view. If I switch across to data view, no fields have been set up yet, so we want to be focusing in for this particular video just in this design area, getting used to setting up fields of different names, different types, and making sure we can also set some of the field properties. Okay, if I refer to my plan, my data dictionary, the first one that I want to create is a student ID, and it will be auto number, and it's the unique identifier for each student. And as I go down the list, you can see what the names are, what the type is, and a description or an example for each. So my goal is to spend a minute or two just setting up field by field each of the data items. So I minimize that. This ID field at the very top needs to be renamed to student ID. You can have a space there if you want to, that doesn't matter. I'll leave it with a space out. Its data type is correct, auto number, which as I explained last time is a number that automatically increments with the number of records that you put in. And it is the unique ID for each student. Okay. You can work a couple of ways in Access. You can simply go down the list and type in all the field names and then set the data types after you've done that, or you can work across and set up each one. So to model that, if I go to surname, I can go across to the right, set its field name to short text, which is up to 255 characters, which would be a decent sized sentence if you need that much space. And the description, students surname. That's working across, obviously. Working down the list, I can just go ahead and type in all of the field names. Summer co-curricular, winter co-curricular, and photo. Now I can just double check my data dictionary to make sure that actually matches. Yep, pretty close. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and set the data types for those. Given name and surname, they are both short text. Date of birth, it will be a date and time data type, and in addition to that, it will have some additional formatting done to it. So I'm moving down into the field properties, into format, and setting that as a short date. The house. At Kinross, we have 8 houses, no problem. In the house section, we have 8 houses, and we will set up those in what's called a lookup wizard, which is basically a drop-down menu of options. Now, the reason we would do that, a couple of important reasons. Number one, it's fast. Once you set up the menu, then it takes no time at all to make a choice, rather than having to continually type that in. The other one is the really important issue of data validation, which is making sure that the data is accurate and correct at the point of entry. And drop-down menus that have been checked for correctness, they will always be correct. Whereas if you're typing in records manually all of the time, there is that increased risk that that your data could be have errors or could be corrupt, and that will obviously impact when you're doing querying and some of those other processes. So I will choose the second option. I will type the values that I want. We have Blackman House. We have Brown House. I'll only do a few houses because I'd like to get through a few skills, so I'll just do Dean and Douglas, and we can come back and change that later and add to it, which is fine. So I'll just hit next and finish. I'll say this is a list of houses, and I would do exactly the same thing with winter sport and or winter co-curricular and summer co-curricular. I would make them drop-down lists, and I would type in the responses. And this photo, it is an OLE object, which is basically just a dump of binary information. And what we're actually going to do is take photos and embed the photographs into the fields. And we'll be able to do that at a later point when we construct a form. So for the moment, I will just set that to OLE object, and I'll put in a little note to be a photo of student. So in terms of skills, that is basically all that you need to set up a table. It's just a matter of going through and making sure that every field name has an appropriate name, an appropriate type, and you should have descriptions or examples in all of those. That's just good database design. You may have noticed that depending on the information or the type that you're using, the field properties, it can change. Over time, you'll work with more things like validation rules and working with input masks and that type of stuff, but that's for a later lesson. Okay, so that's all for this lesson. And it's just a matter of making sure that you've filled all that information in. Okay, so make sure you save your changes. And one final reminder is that at that top level, student ID, it should be set with a primary key. Okay, so that's all for this lesson. We'll pick up with some more skills next time. Thanks for watching.